Hafide and welcome to another episode of CNMI Weekly. I'm your host Thomas Manglona reporting on Saipan. In our first story, we hear from the Hotel Association of the Northern Mariana Islands. They say the industry continues to be in survival mode. The Hotel Association of the Northern Mariana Islands reported a 35% occupancy in April. They need at least 80% to profit. They continue to be in survival mode.
All the hotels of the Hanmi, they are losing the money. They are struggling financially.
It can be as much as $500,000 a month for one hotel.
And with Hyatt Regency Saipan's closure in June, it's a grim forecast for tourist arrivals this summer.
It's a good chance we're going to be net negative for the total number of flights 2023 versus 2024.
Hanmi also reported that the average room rate dropped by $10.68 down to $122.12 due to competition with other beach destinations.
We're at a low occupancy and making less money for the occupancy that we do have.
Hanmi says air service this summer will likely not meet or exceed last year's numbers.
We don't want another Hyatt Regency. So we share as much as possible. We get together what we need, plan it, and then speak out and to reach out whatever we can get help and closely working with MBA.
We have to put together, some the preparation or something measures that we can still survive in such very challenging circumstance.
And recently, the CNMI community marked Memorial Day on Monday.
We will never adequately thank those who have defended our freedom, but we can honor them in so many ways, big or small.
Nothing I could say could match the sacrifice and the patriotism that motivated those whose remains rest here. Nothing I could say could honor them more than their own actions in the service of our nation. I want to simply remind us all that this veteran cemetery on this small plot of land, northern Saipan, does not stand alone. Our cemetery is part of a worldwide network connected by the dedication to service and country of those interred. Whether it be the stone garden at Arlington with its thousands of hillside markers, or the quiet grasses in Normandy that cover the many who perished on D-Day. These cemeteries are all connected by the dedication of those who put their lives on the line for our nation. Today, we honor them.
These valiant individuals were more than soldiers. They were our family members, our friends, and our neighbors. They believe in the CNMI where dreams could be realized and a brighter future awaited. For this vision, they gave their all, trading their tomorrows for today's.
And the Commonwealth Bureau of Military Affairs shares some recent missed opportunities from the CNMI as the CNMI lacks infrastructure to meet certain military project needs. Here's Danny Aquino, Special Assistant for Military Affairs to the NMI Governor.
Missed opportunities. Fluor Corporation was awarded $409 million to finish the divert projects. From my understanding and discussions with Tinian Mayor, and my staff in Tinian, they're going to hire Turkish workers because they were informed that the CNMI doesn't have an adequate workforce. The other training that happened here in the CNMI was Agile Reaper, and currently there's another one, Valiant Shield, that will be happening in June. I was informed that, for Agile Reaper, they brought in over 1,000 cases of water from Hawaii. They were informed that the CNMI doesn't have adequate water supply.
And now to our conversation with NMI Delegate Gregorio Soblan, who voices his support for the U.S.-China flight cap exemption.
I have asked the Department of Transportation to consider allowing Annex 6. If for the only reason that I see our people we're in a bad place in our economy.
China dominated the tourism industry pre-COVID. Now the NMI relies on South Korea as it also works to bring back Japanese tourists. But as some in the business community have warned, a third market is essential to stability.
I've watched this place, Carapan district especially, deteriorate. And we need to do something about it. But if it collapses further, we're probably never going to recover further in my lifetime.
NMI Governor Arnold Palacios began pivoting away from relying on the China market when he took office in favor of military development and diversification. In a recent op-ed, Palacios pushed back on the China or bust narrative. Sablon commented on the issue, noting that China is an aggressive competitor, but said maintaining a relationship between the U.S. and China is still vital amid concerns about national security. Do you believe China is still essential to our economy?
No. I believe tourism is essential to our economy. It is our number one industry. It's so important to us, I think that, and I've said this to others before, is that since we say that tourism is very important to the Northern Marianas, then why don't we put our money where our mouth is? Now it's not a good time to talk about money, but why don't we dedicate 5% of the Commonwealth budget? Now, before we remove the mandatory payments, to an organization that will keep our islands clean and our sites improved and also promote our islands, 5%.
We'll have more CNMI Weekly right after this. Welcome back to another episode of CNMI Weekly. In our next report, we explore the recent issues with the FAFSA, that's the free application for federal student aid, that students at the Northern Marianas College and from across the Pacific faced in the recent application cycle. Here's more.
A lot of students are having a difficult time with filling out the FAFSA, and it discourages them for them to come into college.
Bonnie Gio Sagana is just one of hundreds of students from the Pacific who felt the weight of uncertainty as they faced various issues while applying for the free application for federal student aid. At NMC alone,
we usually get about 1,400 applications every year.
Students from the Marianas and around the Pacific who rely on federal aid face new issues with a system meant to simplify the process.
This, to me, is a clear example of what happens when you treat minorities as a minority.
The Northern Mariana Islands wasn't listed on the drop-down menu under the U.S., plus the application now required a social security number, which some students in the Pacific do not have, and it also more closely aligned with the IRS system, which some people do not use to file taxes. It also became more difficult for high school and college counselors to assist students along the way.
We believe that the system was outsourced, and getting them to fix it has been challenging. But the U.S. Department of Education is responsive, but we're going to need to maintain, the effort because it hasn't all been resolved.
The college has been working with the NMI delegate, the White House, and national organizations to fix it. NMC's Financial Aid Office has this advice to students and their families.
We do encourage students and their families to submit the application as early as possible because of all these issues that are coming up.
The CNMI is beaming with pride. The CNMI recently proclaiming June as Pride Month. Here's more from the proclamation event. The Northern Marianas proclaims June as Pride Month.
It's monumental that we're all out here as a community, outdoors in the Marianas, making this gesture to make it known that we celebrate love and we value life here.
Roberto Santos is the chair of Pride Marianas. He said it comes at a critical time.
And in the United States, we're seeing a lot of legislation being passed that is anti-trans and anti-queer and anti-gay. That influences what happens here too much, and it is so valuable that we make these decisions for ourselves, and we take the initiative, and we choose to lead our people in what we believe in and in what we value.
Marianas High School students, part of the Dolphin Pride Club, read the proclamation. Member Lucy Chen.
With this declaration, our Commonwealth commits to ensuring that prejudice, discrimination, and ignorance have no place. Instead, we choose love that sees no bounds.
The NMI governor and lieutenant governor also expressed their commitment to progress.
We've really evolved into a more inclusive society.
Saipan resident Zen Tomokani expressed their pride amid the proclamation.
That's one of the aims of Pride. It's to make sure that we all get to a point where, maybe in the near future we don't even have to celebrate Pride. This is just a part of us. And I think love and identity is just as natural as anything else, and I think it's a great power we should all be proud of.
And before we close out the show, we hear from Secretary of Finance Tracy Narita, who shares some recent tax filing updates. Secretary, thank you for your time. I just wanted to ask you about the recent press release entitled "Tax Fraud is Theft and Will Not Be Tolerated." So maybe you can just give us some context on why release this type of information now and what message you want to get across to the public.
Okay. Well, Tomas, thank you for that question, and thank you for being here and giving me the opportunity to help the public understand what tax enforcement is. And so first of all, we issued that press release because there has been community concern over enforcement actions taken by the Division of Revenue and Tax. And so I believe this press release is timely to help the community understand what those enforcement actions would look like.
And so it says your tax fraud is a deliberate attempt to evade taxes or to defraud DRT. One of the following: intentionally fails to pay taxes owed, willfully fails to file a federal income tax return, fails to report all income, make false or fraudulent claims. Are these particular issues that are kind of you've seen significantly increase in the CNMI in recent years, or every year this is just a reminder you want to put up?
Yeah, I would just say this is the nature of tax administration and tax enforcement. And I'd just like to stress and reiterate that the tax law applies uniformly to all taxpayers, whether it is the private sector or the government. The tax law does not discriminate.
And how many taxpayers are there in the CNMI? I know before you were secretary, you were director of DRT, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, the number fluctuates depending on the number of business license and active businesses reporting revenue, but that number changes.
All right. And so you also had a message for employers. What do you want employers to know around this time?
The bottom line is if you withhold taxes from an employee's paycheck, you are responsible to remit those taxes to the government, and failure to do so is illegal, period.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of CNMI Weekly. I'm your host, Thomas Manglona, reporting on Saipan, and we'll see you right here, same time, same place, next week.